Le- Welcome to Game Talk with Drew. I'm your host, Drew Bretto, and today I'm here with my dad, James Bretto. And today we're going to be talking about the latest things in sports. Biggest thing being the Luka Doncic trade to the LA Lakers. Um, so that'll be what we'll be kicking off today with. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, you know, when I first heard the news about Luka going to the Lakers, first thing that pops into my mind is LeBron gets whatever he wants. You know,
Yeah,
he go ahead.
yeah, it is. Because everywhere besides his first couple of years in the league when he was with Cleveland, he was with nobody. But ever since then, he's always been with a big name superstar.
Yeah, but that's the kind of league that we're in today, right? I mean, every team is looking for a big three to kind of take them to that promised land, right? But not too many teams have gotten that to work. And LeBron is definitely one of them who's continuing to chase and just trying to find that right chemistry. But I'm not sure if Luka is that guy.
I mean, yeah, offensively, Luka is phenomenal. I mean, averages 30 plus. He's a guy that gets you triple double on any night. But on the defensive end, he is many people would say a liability. Anthony. If you looked at Anthony Davis, I mean, sure, some nights he was very inconsistent, but he was great offensively and defensively. But if you look at it as well, right now they've had him playing the five. They've been having him play at center, which hasn't been able to maximize his, you know, who he is. Mainly he's been a forward when he was with New Orleans. He was the power forward because DeMarcus Cousins was his center, and he was putting up great numbers. And even when they won the chip in 2020, he wasn't the center. He was playing the four, and that's what made him so great that year, and that's why they won. But ever since then, he's always been playing the five, and he's almost, I wouldn't say struggle is the word, but he hasn't been able to play his best there.
Yeah. But with them moving Anthony Davis out, I mean, who's going to be that big man? Like you said, Luka, he's not the best, defensively. I mean, he's definitely an offensive threat, but I mean, to battle against these other teams that they're going to be going up against, who's going to be going up against, you know, the Joker and things like that, these other teams within the league.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I see where Dallas went with this. They got a young guy in Max Christie who's shown some potential to be a really good role player. And then you got Anthony Davis. And what makes that good for them is they already have Kyrie, great offensive threat. They have Clay that he could give you about 15 a night. But the thing about AD going to Dallas is he will be playing the four. They have a true big man. They have Daniel Gafford who will play the five, who is strictly doing the dirty work and grabbing rebounds and stuff. And now allow AD to play more freely and be able to work like a 1-2 with Kyrie or even with Clay. And for the Lakers, I mean, I think right now their starting centers, I think is Jackson Hayes. I believe when
So
he was
So who do you think wins this trade in the short term, right? Who's gonna win today, right? I think Dallas is in a better position today, but LeBron doesn't have too many years on his legs still, right? Um, so okay, there you go. I haven't seen that
so
overall.
yeah, this is what everyone gets. The Lakers get Luka Doncic, Maxi Kleber, and Markieff Morris. So they got two forwards, but Markieff Morris is about maybe I think 6'7", 6'8", and Maxi Kleber is I think 6'10". But even Maxi Kleber is not really a center himself. He's more of like a stretch four. A guy that will stretch the floor, sit in the corner, can hit a corner three. Then the Mavericks they get Anthony Davis, Max Christie, a first round pick, and like 4 years. And then the Jazz get Jalen Hood-Schifino, and then 2 seconds. So
Is
I
there any
think
is there any conditions on that first round pick, or is it just
I think it's just
what
a
it?
normal. I think it's just the first round pick. In the short term, unless somehow the Lakers could win the chip, I believe the Lakers would win it. But I think Dallas wins this because Luka is a free agent in 2026, and there's been a thing that the Miami Heat have been creating cap space about I think 80 million, so that they could offer Luka a big contract when he's a free agent. So unless the Lakers can extend him, then I think the Lakers win. But as of right now, I believe Dallas wins it.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, I never thought Luka was going to leave Dallas, right? I was kind of reading through these overall notes and stuff like that, and they said he described this trade as, he was completely floored by this, right? I mean, how do you think that is going to affect his, performance? I mean, if he's going to be available in 2026, I mean, how much is he really going to be able to contribute?
I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, when you think of Luka Doncic, you think of almost a guy like Dirk Nowitzki, some guy like Mark Cuban Loves that you would think not in a day, no matter what they got offered, they would trade him.
Yeah.
So a lot of people around, even further than just basketball, are stunned by this move. Because to be honest, I mean, it doesn't necessarily make sense. I mean, Dallas was just in the finals last year with Luka. And I mean, I guess the only big offseason person that they got was Klay Thompson, but even then, he hasn't been the most efficient guy in the league. And when you look at the Lakers, right now I believe they're a couple games over 500. They're, I think, the 6th seed. I could be wrong on that, but they're definitely in playoff contention. And then you trade your true big man, who was an all-star caliber player, and now you have no one to fill that role. Now you have backup bigs playing the starting role. So, and Luka right now is still not even healthy, still recovering from a calf injury. And they say he might return before All-Star break, but even then, I don't see Luka being a bigger impact in LA than Anthony Davis would be in Dallas.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was reading some of the gradings, and from all these different analysts that kind of come out, right? They listed this for the Lakers as an A+ because you get Doncic that is 25 years old, right? I mean, the prime of his career, and they listed it for the Mavericks as an F, right? It's pretty crazy, kind of what's going to come out, but we'll only see as they start playing. When are they supposed to have their first game with Luka on the sidelines?
Well, like I said, Luka on the sidelines. Usually after a trade, it's usually like a game or two, and then they'll be there.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, Luka is out with injury, so we don't know when he's going to join that lineup. But even then, LeBron's 40. How many years are you going to get of Luka and LeBron? Are you going to get this year, next year, or maybe even this year alone? That's a question I have. And then even then, LeBron still gets paid a lot because he's LeBron. Like I said, Luka becoming a free agent. I mean, do they throw the bag at Luka to keep him in LA, or do they lose out the bidding war to another team, for say the Miami Heat?
But they are one of those historic teams that teams want to play for, right? I mean, they want to be part of that overall Laker legacy that have come in and wore that purple and gold, right? I could definitely see him, being extended there in LA, right? But I'm not. The fact that they get him in the first place definitely gives them better odds to retain them than just trying to get him outright in free agency.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, you go for it all maybe once in a lifetime. But it really surprised me because I saw a couple days ago that they obviously Anthony Davis, when he was with the Lakers, recently said that he would like for them to get a true center because to him he's a better when he's at the power forward. So you saw that I don't know if you saw, but I saw that the Lakers were trying to trade with the Jazz to get their big man. What's his name? He's blanking on me right now. But the big man from Utah. Let me look this up. Walker Kessler. Big man Walker Kessler. Only in his second or third year, young center, 7 foot. but Jazz weren't willing to give up anything. So
Mhm.
the fact that the Mavs offered Luka is just really astonishing, and the fact that honestly they didn't give up, the Lakers didn't give up more for Luka. I mean, Anthony Davis is a great player, obviously. But the fact they didn't give up a little bit more is I can see why people gave him the F grade. You know, because
Mhm.
Anthony Davis was 31. Maybe Max Christie's still young. Then a 2029 first round pick. You don't know. No first round pick is a guarantee. You know. So I,
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them are going to need to prove themselves out, right, within the within the NBA, right? It's hard to see. I mean, you got someone with Lucas who's well established, right? Multiple time All Star, right? And that was one of the things that they were talking about, with the all these team captains of the All Star games, right? And LeBron's always picking Luka to be on his team, and now he gets him in the real life.
yeah. Overall, I believe if the Lakers can sign Luka to that long term extension, I believe it's a win-win for both teams. Like now, and maybe in the future as well. But that's all talk about the Luka Doncic trade. Now we're gonna get into something else. Okay, now breaking news: a couple of hours ago, the Raider Chip Kelly is leaving Ohio State to become the Raiders' offensive coordinator. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, man, you just win the national championship, right? And then you're gonna move over to the Raiders. Being a Raider fan, it's definitely something that I like, right? I mean, he's been in the league, he's been in the NFL, he's been the head coach of Ohio State. Um, former coach of the Eagles, right? I think it's a big win, right? It's definitely one of the things I thought when with the Raiders bringing on Pete Carroll. That's one of the things that name alone can help bring on and his supporting cast, right? And this is just an example of that.
Yeah, Pete Carroll, big name, won a lot of big games. You know, he's won the Super Bowl. He's been in the Super Bowl a couple times. But yeah, Chip Kelly. I mean, when he was with the Eagles, they've had the second, third, and fourth ranked best offense with QBs, obviously Michael Vick, but also with Nick Foles and Mark Sanchez. When you think about the Raiders, you think, okay, they got guys like Brock Bowers, Jacoby Myers, Max Crosby, Christian Wilkins. They got some big names, but the big name you don't hear about is a quarterback. And so, Chip Kelly, Will Howard at Ohio State was great. The offense at Ohio State was great. Obviously, they won the national championship, like you said. Um, so now you got to see, like, okay, what are they gonna do, and how are they gonna figure out what to do with the quarterback situation? Do you play another year with Aiden O'Connell, or do you somehow trade up in the draft, or wait till the second round and maybe draft a guy and see how he plays, or do you look at free agency of guys like maybe Sam Donald, Russell Wilson, or even Justin Jefferson?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different options in front of them, right? I mean, it's um, and so many different rumors that are swirling around the Raiders, right? Even what do you think? Sam Donald, Russell Wilson? I mean, hopefully if it's a Russell Wilson, it's a new Russ that we see, not this old Russ that we just experienced, right?
Um, yeah, I mean, free agency definitely a lot of questionable guys. I mean, Sam Donald during the regular season was phenomenal, Pro Bowl quarterback. Um, but he did stink it up in the last couple of weeks. Big game against the
Yeah.
Lions for the number one seed.
Yeah.
Terrible game. Big game against the Rams in the playoffs. They only put up 9 points. He was sacked about was it 7 times, I believe. So obviously there's concerns there. I mean, obviously that's his first time ever being in the big stage like that. So maybe, I mean, you could hope that next time it does happen that it's not the same outcome. But then you guys got guys like Russell Wilson, won the Super Bowl before, was with Pete Carroll, had his best years with Pete Carroll. Then he gets traded to the Broncos, has a down year. Then he gets released and signs with Pittsburgh, and he was out to start the year. Justin Fields was 4-0 with them, was having some great numbers, not the best numbers, but great numbers compared to what he had in Chicago. Then they they start Russell Wilson, and he then proceeds to lead them to the playoffs. He was having great years, but then again, at the end of the year, he had 5 bad games. And so, there's always the question of can they perform in those big games? And it's a question with a lot of quarterbacks, So you have to see because, you could draft a rookie, but not every rookie's gonna pan out like Jaden Daniels. He's gonna take your
Yeah,
team to the conference championship.
and you think they had the time to mold a rookie with Pete Carroll? I mean, he's what, 73 years old, right? I mean, he's in great shape. You hear. I was reading an article about Max Crosby loving his energy and things like that, and I've heard a lot of good things about him even before he came on to the Raiders, right? So that's why I was excited about that selection. But you think he has enough time to kind of groom a rookie, and will the Raiders and that new management team and with Tom Brady's influence, what you think they will look to groom someone brand new, or take a veteran that's gonna get you through, someone that's gonna be consistent, while you then hopefully draft something or groom someone to kind of come up from in a year or two from now.
I mean, yeah, that is a good question, but you also know the connection of Shadur Sanders has with Tom Brady. Obviously the Raiders are the sixth overall pick. It's not the best position to draft a quarterback, especially with the teams in front of you are very in need in that position. So maybe the Raiders do go up and draft a guy like Shadur Sanders and hope he's the player that they saw in college, the guy who could really throw the rock as well as extend plays and make plays with his feet. Something that the Raiders haven't had at quarterback for quite a while now. Probably since Derek Carr injured his leg in 2016. So to me, it makes a good. That does. It is a good question to know if they do have the time to mold a quarterback. But maybe if they do draft the quarterback, you could hope he molds into very quickly into a guy like Jaden Daniels. Guy who quickly developed, quickly won games. Played great, uh, was great under pressure, was very composed in the pocket. Or like I said, you could go to the veteran route. See, I know the Steelers are trying to re-sign Russell Wilson because they like him, or you could go back to that connection that Pete's already had.
Yeah.
But what do you think? How well do you think the Raiders offense will be under Chip Kelly? Like I said, they got offensive guys like Brock Bowers, Trey Tucker, Jacoby Myers, Michael Mayer. They have a really solid offensive line.
I mean, what the Raiders had, I mean, the Raiders, their offense wasn't completely terrible, right? I mean, they had a couple 1,000-yard receivers, right? And so, but definitely, I think there's some key missing pieces, and I think with Chip Kelly, I think he would be able to give them a little extra, right, as part of his offensive mind, and bring in some items, not like a McDaniels or anything like that, right? I mean, he was always thought of the key offensive mind, but obviously couldn't lead that whole team. And we're not asking Chip Kelly to do that, right? We're only asking him to be the OC, right? And that's why there's some people in that role that they and that's one of the things, when you go into this coaching corral, there's always the hottest offensive coordinator, defense coordinators that get put in, the names for these top positions, but can they really run the whole show? And we're not asking Chip to do that, right? Focus on what he's good at, right? And obviously he sees this as a position that he would excel with. Otherwise, why would he leave Ohio State in the first place?
That is true. Ohio State is always a winning program. At least it has been for the past couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, they have just with the name, they have an easy way of recruiting top talent, right?
Yeah, I mean,
It's not so much on the Raiders. Raiders are a team that not necessarily players want to go to. Yes, it's the team in Sin City, and that brings in some outside influence, right? In regards to, hey, are all these players really just thinking about playing football and winning these games? you hear far too many items with it's far too many things within the news on these Raider players, and just they need to focus at the game at hand, right? What they're getting paid to do.
I mean, yeah, I mean Chip Kelly, at Ohio State this past year, he had Will Howard, he had running backs like Kayvon Junkins. He had a stud wide receiver in Jeremiah Smith, and just a super explosive offense. I was averaging like 30 plus points per game, and now he's leaving to the Raiders, who average made not like 17 points per games, but they've had, like you said, a couple thousand-yard receivers in Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers. The big question is, who's the starting quarterback week one? Who else? Also, who is the starting running back week one?
Have you seen the news about even Aaron Rodgers' names being thrown in that mix?
I mean, yeah, this past couple months, Aaron Rodgers' name has been thrown at a lot of teams. After a disappointing year, after people expecting so much from him coming back from the injury, but
Yeah.
he's what, 40, 41 years old? He's getting up there in age. He's already up there in age. So I
Yeah,
guess,
I guess I see that as the best thing for the Raiders. Get someone that's well established. Get someone that could be the person to run the team for a year while they're grooming someone else. I mean, even Aiden O'Connell. I mean, he's still learning. He's still a really young guy, right? He showed some flashes, but the consistency hasn't been there, right? So I think regardless, I think that's something that the Raiders should be looking into, right? But I'm from the bench looking inside, right?
yeah. I mean, the Raiders. I mean, if you watched Raiders games like I did last year, you'd see that the offense wasn't terrible. It showed a lot of flashes, like you said. But there's also many times they got into the red zone, they got into scoring territory. They just couldn't get it into touchdowns, which is why they were all losing games. And I wouldn't say turnovers was the biggest thing, but sometimes it was questionable play calling. I mean, to me, Chip Kelly is a really good hiring for the Raiders. It's a major upgrade than um what's his
Antonio
name?
Pierce.
Luke. No, that too. But Luke Getsky, the offensive coordinator that the Raiders hired last year, I think he's a
Hmm.
massive upgrade over him because they fired Luke Getsky midway through the year, right? I mean, the offense was terrible under Luke Getsky. I mean, they couldn't run the ball, they couldn't score in the red zone. And then once they fired him, I mean, it did get a little bit better under Scott Turner. Wasn't better. I mean, they scoring wise, it didn't look like they were scoring more. But if you watch the tape, the offense definitely looked more spread out. They were able to run the ball a little bit better. They would have passed it more. O'Connell had a couple pretty good games that they just lost by close scores.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm glad 2024 is behind us, right? I mean, it was definitely a difficult season to watch, right? For being a longtime Raider fan, I'm definitely looking forward to kind of what's next, right? For that team. I just I think there's going to be a lot more rumors kind of going on throughout the year and the until until draft times and things like that. We'll just wait and see.
Yeah, we will. All right, now our third and final topic for today's show is Super Bowl. Super Bowl's right around the corner. It's in a week. Um, who do you believe will win the game?
I'm just rooting for the commercials. you know, Kansas City going for a three-peat. You know, and Philadelphia. I mean, who's really going to be focused in this particular matchup, right? I mean, when you if you were to do a poll across America, right? Who's rooting for who? And I think it's going to be for the most part Philly. I think people want to see Philadelphia. Yes, there's all those Taylor Swift fans out there, right? That's going to vote for KC, right? But uh, I'm going for Philly.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you. I don't think many people want to see that three-peat. I believe people are tired of seeing Mahomes and all the controversy with the whistles that he gets, the penalties that they get from the refs. But it's a rematch from a couple years ago that the Chiefs did end up winning. Um, But for me, every year, if my team's not in the Super Bowl, I'm just looking for a good game to watch. Um, but I am rooting for Philly. I believe they are, and they do have the better team than they did a couple of years ago. I just think, right now this article shows, the Eagles' biggest matchup questions for the Super Bowl, but I also think there's also big questions for the Chiefs, like their offense. Yeah, they beat Buffalo, but Buffalo did have a turnoverless game. They didn't turn over the ball. I mean, they got stopped on fourth down maybe a couple times, but that's because of the defense. I mean, offensively, I feel like the Chiefs weren't that great. Um, they weren't really efficient passing or um running the ball, but they had a big kickoff return, a big punt return. I mean, they were just able to capitalize on what they got from their special teams and their defense. And
Yeah,
I believe that the Eagles don't make the same errors almost that the Bills did, or even the Ravens.
they got to have a perfect game, right? You cannot leave the door open because Patrick Mahomes has shown time and time again that you give him that opening, him and the refs are going to help you out, right? They're gonna take advantage of that specific opportunity that's given to them, and so you know. The Eagles can't give them that opportunity, right? Hopefully they could control the ball, right? They could run with Shaquan, right? And being able to dominate the game clock. I think that is a key for them to win, right? This overall game, right? Keep KC off their offense on the sidelines.
Yeah, I'm agree. Philly's got the best offensive line in the NFL. There's no question about that. From the left side to the right side, it is the best. But the biggest thing that Philly needs to do to win the game is to be able to run the ball. I mean, when you saw the Ravens game, the Ravens weren't able to run the ball much with Derrick Henry. I know the offensive line to the Ravens isn't as good as the Eagles, but they still had Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. They weren't really able to run the ball a lot. But Jalen Hurts, I believe he hasn't had a turnover yet these playoffs. So if he could play a clean game and just be able to manage it, be able to get first downs, get into scoring range, and then being able to score. And the defense is young. They got a lot of young guys in there. They got two rookie corners, two young star defensive tackles, a young edge rusher. I mean, they got some experience in that defense. But the question is, can those young guys step up and make plays on the biggest stage?
Yeah. Yeah, the defense is going to come in huge, right? I mean, I think the Eagles they have some offensive threats, right? Devonta Smith and Dallas Goddard, and and obviously with Saquon out of that backfield, they have a lot of weapons, and with Jalen Hurts and things like that, right? Um, it's really going to come down to that defense, as you mentioned, right? Being able to hold down, you know, Travis Kelsey, he's big. He's a big target every single game, right? And that's Patrick Mahomes, security, right? And so that's what he's going to be looking at. So they have very good rapport and playing together, and they just need to make sure that that they could put him under wraps.
Mahomes, hasn't had the best of seasons the past couple of years, but I mean, he's won the Super Bowl last year. You know, in the big moments, he has stepped up, and it's what he's done his whole career. He's barely been beaten before in the playoffs. So, to me, I believe the Eagles need to shut down certain offensive guys. They won't be able to stop Mahomes, but they could stop Kelsey. If they could stop that run game, I believe they'll be able to get to Mahomes and make him throw interceptions and make errors.
Yeah. So Super Bowl is always a big time for betting and all these sport props and things like that. Have you looked at some of these sport props that have been coming out, right? And which do you like, right? I mean, coin flip is always one of them. Who's going to score that first touchdown? What would you be betting on?
Oh, that's a good question because they even have some weird ones like will an offensive lineman score a touchdown? Would the running back throw a touchdown? Because you've seen that in a couple of years. Nick Foles caught a touchdown against the
Mm,
Patriots. Joe Mixon threw a touchdown. Juwan Jennings threw a touchdown as well last year. So I'd say and another popular one is what Gatorade color gets thrown on the coach on the winning team.
yeah. Well,
Um,
you know this one. With Taylor Swift's influence, they just keep adding more and more about Taylor Swift, right? I'm here reading a couple ones. They have this Taylor Swift 1989 special, which is Kelsey to have a reception for 19 plus yards and 89 plus receiving yards. It's they're going to do anything they could throw out there, and then you hear the one about if they win the Super Bowl, Kelsey retires and proposes to Taylor Swift. It's
yeah,
crazy how much. I mean, it's good for the game. I want to see more people watching the game and getting women involved and things like that. It's good for the game, but it's just crazy how much they highlight that.
yeah, it's definitely boosted ratings. There's obviously pros and cons to that. There's a lot of people who like it. There's also a lot of people that dislike it. Um, but overall, I mean, it will attract a lot of viewers. It will attract a lot of people to see that. And yeah, ever since the two of them have been together, I mean, something you hear every week.
And so who's performing at halftime? What's the show going to be like? What do you expect? I mean,
Kendrick Lamar is performing at halftime. We don't know about any special guests. Normally every halftime performer has a special guest come out with them. But so far we don't know much. We just know it's Kendrick. I mean, he was part of the halftime show a couple years ago during the Rams and Bengals. He was out there. He did perform a little bit with Snoop and 50 and all of them. But as of right now, it's just him. So hopefully that is a good show. I mean, I know Kendrick's a big name, but his type of music isn't the favorite or liked by most people. But he does have a large crowd.
yeah, I mean the NFL has always embraced kind of the hip hop artist and things like that, right? So I think it should be I think it should be a good performance, right? I think he does have a lot of, a big following and things like that, as you mentioned. He's been on that show before, right? He's been on that stage, right? I mean, we've had a couple years, the previous years with Usher and Rihanna out there, and Dre, Snoop, and the group, right? Um, so I just want to see, the overall great performance from the team, and hopefully, giving the fans what they want to hear, right? And a little surprise is sometimes you're always kind of worried about what the NFL is willing to or not willing to go ahead and do and show.
Um, yeah, there's obviously every year people look forward to the halftime show during the Super Bowl. But there's a lot of recent halftime shows as well. During the Thanksgiving games, there was who was it? There was Post Malone,
With
there
Beyonce.
was Beyonce, and then there was Jack Harlow. They were performing during halftime, but obviously those aren't as big as a Super Bowl. So hopefully we get a good show out of Kendrick, and as well as a good game. But what do you think the biggest takeaway from the Super Bowl between the Eagles and the Chiefs is?
I mean, I think the biggest takeaway here is, I mean, it's gonna, no matter what happens, I mean, it continues, to show the dynasty of the Chiefs. I hate to say it, at being a Raider fan, but I mean, to make it three times in a row, and just to show how often they've made it to the conference championships, right, over the past 10 years, right, or how many years in a row. it's definitely solidifying that legacy, right? There's always the talk about, is Mahomes going to be the GOAT that's going to replace Brady? I think he has a long ways to go to be able to go ahead and make that claim. But it's definitely it's this every step of the way gets you there, right? Every one of these, right? And because Brady has gone to many, and he's lost a few as his himself, right? So just the fact that if the Chiefs do wind up losing to the Eagles, I don't think this is going to be, something bad against Mahomes, right? It's just another step in his historic career.
So yeah, that's my next question. Do you think if the Chiefs win the Super Bowl, they have a dynasty? What do you think that changes if they lose this? If they lose,
I don't think that changes if they lose. I think they have a dynasty today, right? It's not easy to do with so many with injuries that happen every single year, and players getting traded and things like that. I think it was easier early on in the NFL, but all of this different money and max contracts and things like that, and people changing teams over and over again, right? Those are some of the hardest things to keep up with. When I remember growing up watching teams, you were seeing um, you know teams going there, every single year, whether it was the Raiders dynasty, the Niners dynasty, the Bills, um, things like that. Um, it's something that was seen more often, right, than the league that's around today.
yeah. What do you think if the Eagles win the Super Bowl? What do you think it means for them as a franchise and as like for certain players like Jalen Hurts, who has caught a lot of fire for not being that great of a quarterback recently?
I think this will help put those naysayers away, right, and kind of calm them down. I think he's a great quarterback. He's still a very young quarterback as well, right, and has a lot of playing time still in his career, right. And he's a threat not only with his arm but also his feet. I mean, they always give praise to Lamar Jackson and things like that, but I think Jalen Hurts is right up there as well.
Yeah, great quarterback. Catches too much heat than I think is reasonable. He's only had, I think, winning records. I mean, ever since he took over for Carson Wentz back in 2020, 2021. Um, he's been nothing but a great quarterback. I mean, like I said, he was in the Super Bowl just a few years ago. Um, and I think for him, it would be something major. It would put him in the conversation of maybe best quarterbacks in the NFL. Because obviously right now he's behind guys like Mahomes, Lamar, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, but only Mahomes has won championship, right? And Jalen Hurts' name is a little thrown underneath them because honestly, I don't know why. I mean, he hasn't obviously he hasn't won MVP, but he was in the conversation for it 2 years ago when he was in that Super Bowl.
Yeah. I mean, there's only one person that wins MVP of the league, right? So it's every single year. It's very difficult to go ahead and do, right? Because there's so many people that are leading the leagues. I mean, but he has been consistent. I mean, if you look at his completion percentage since 2021, he has been north of 60%, with this year being his best, right? 68% completion rating, right? Granted, his yards what number was not there, but his quarterback rating was the highest that it's been. So I think he's continuing to peak, and he will continue to see this success as long as the Eagles keep the talent around them. But I think he's one that elevates this additional team, right? I mean, there's others that you mentioned Joe Burrow, and I think he's one that gets a little bit too much credit, right? How many, yes, he's in this race for MVP or things like that, but if you're not winning games, you know that's ultimately the goal, right?
I mean, yeah, that's another thing. Like Lamar, they won many games. He's won already 2 MVPs. Um, he will likely is the front runner to win a third one this year. Um,
I think it will. I think it will go to him. I would like to see it to go to like a Shaquan. I mean, think about it.
yeah,
They could have easily let him play that last game and he break a record, right? That's been standing for a long time.
but you also got to think about who had the bigger impact. I believe Saquon. If Saquon wasn't on this Eagles team this year, they wouldn't have had the record that they had. The impact that he's had. I mean, what 2,000 rushing yards he's had, all the touchdowns he scored. I mean, he was huge for the Eagles team this year. He's probably the biggest reason why they're in the Super Bowl. See, like Lamar, obviously he's got great years, great numbers, right? Probably the best numbers he's had in his whole career. But he couldn't win him the big game, right? Against the Bills, I mean, he had what was it? 3 turnovers, 2 turnovers, 2 crucial turnovers. He had a pick and a fumble. I mean,
Yeah.
Saquon is yeah,
Yeah.
Saquon has done nothing but elevate that Eagles team.
Yeah, I mean, he was a man possessed against the Commanders, right? To get to this get to the Super Bowl. I mean, you see that first drive that he took
I mean,
and just ran it to the house, right? There was
first play
nobody
on
that was going to
the
take him down,
offense.
you know.
Yeah.
3 touchdowns in that game, right? 118 yards on 15 attempts. That's
I mean,
amazing.
it's like every game he's putting up 100 plus. So I guess that would be the biggest question for the Chiefs is can they slow down Saquon Barkley and that Philadelphia Eagles offense? Um, but we'll probably wrap it up there. I believe the Eagles win the Super Bowl. I believe Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley lead them to that victory. And
And who wins the MVP?
I mean, if Saquon goes for 100 plus and a touchdown, I believe Saquon.
Saquon wins the MVP. All right.
Unless Hurts throws for 403 touchdowns. Otherwise, I believe Saquon gets that MVP. Um, thank you guys for tuning in to Game Talk with Drew. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, stay ready.